A quiet transformation is taking shape across North America. It's a story you've likely seen. Japanese automakers, the very symbols of global manufacturing, are in a subtle retreat from the United States. Companies like Subaru and Toyota are redrawing their maps, shifting production, and rethinking decades of investment. The headlines are loud. They speak of political fanfare, of administration officials raging as trade deals are rewritten. They focus on the 25% tariffs. They focus on the estimated $25 billion in the annual losses that Japanese automakers are facing due to these American policies. They focus on the pain points, factories in Indiana slowing down, supply chains being rewritten, and the immediate impact on American jobs. This narrative is simple, compelling, and perfectly aligned with a 20th century view of economic power. It's a war fought over assembly lines, steel and aluminum. But what if I told you this entire story, this loud, angry public battle over tariffs, is a decoy? What if it's the perfect smokescreen? While America is consumed by a fight over how cars are built, its allies and competitors are waging a silent, invisible war over what cars are made of. While Washington is fighting to save the jobs of the last century, it is strategically losing the resource war that will define the next. In this video, we are not going to talk about tariffs. We are going to analyze the real conflict, the geopolitical battle for the 21st century's new oil, and how Canada is becoming the silent winner of a war most Americans don't even know is happening. To understand the decoy, we must first understand why it's so effective. The logic of the 20th century pivot is undeniable. For decades, global corporations built their entire supply chains around one central hub, the American consumer. Proximity to the U.S. market was the single most important strategic advantage. But the introduction of sweeping, unpredictable protectionist tariffs has fundamentally changed that equation. It's not just the cost of the tariffs themselves. It is the uncertainty. As dictated by the core logic of global business, stability is more valuable than proximity. You cannot plan a 10-year, multi-billion-dollar factory investment in a trade environment that changes with a single social media post. The resulting loss of $25 billion annually, with Toyota alone shouldering nearly half that burden, made the exit logical. The decision for Subaru to move production of its Canadian market outback from Lafayette, Indiana, back to Gunma, Japan, was a clear signal. The free trade deal between Japan and Canada allowed it to bypass the punishing tariffs. The decision for other giants like Toyota, Honda, and Mazda to follow suit and look north was equally predictable. But where they chose to go next is what reveals the true strategy. They didn't just move to Mexico, a traditional manufacturing partner. They are converging on one specific location, Canada. And the reason they are moving to Canada has very little to do with avoiding the 2025 tariffs on cars, and everything to do with securing the 2035 supply of energy. This is the pivot from the 20th century war to the 21st century prize. The 21st century prize, the mineral war. The shift is fundamental. The future of the automotive industry does not run on gasoline. It runs on batteries. Electric vehicles, EVs, are not just a product. They represent a complete reset of the global energy and technology landscape. And batteries are not made from steel. They are made from a specific basket of critical minerals. This is the new vocabulary of power: lithium, nickel, cobalt, and high-purity graphite. These elements are the new oil of the 21st century. The nations, the corporations, and the alliances that control the supply chain for these minerals, from the mine to the battery cell, will control the global economy. They will hold the power to decide which countries can build a modern military, which societies can transition to clean energy, and which economies will be left behind, still fighting over the scraps of the gasoline age. This is the real war. So who holds these new keys to the kingdom? This brings us to Canada's hidden ace. Why are global automakers, not just from Japan, but as we will see, from Germany and South Korea, all flocking to Canada specifically? Why Ontario? The answer is not just in the factories, it's in the ground. Canada is a raw material superpower. According to data from the U.S. Geological Survey and the International Energy Agency, IEA, Canada possesses some of the world's largest and most accessible reserves of these critical minerals. While China currently dominates the processing of these minerals, Canada holds the raw, untapped assets. It is one of the top 5 global producers of nickel, essential for high-performance EV batteries. It has massive, high-grade lithium deposits in Quebec and Alberta. It has significant cobalt reserves, often mined alongside nickel. This is Canada's strategic advantage. It possesses the two things the United States is suddenly finding itself short on. First, as we established, it offers political and trade stability. Its trade agreements are predictable. Its governance is reliable. Second, it offers the raw materials for the entire EV battery supply chain, right on its own soil. This combination is strategically unbeatable. This exposes America's great strategic blind spot. In 2024 and 2025, the political discourse in Washington remains locked on 20th century problems. The debates are about steel tariffs and aluminum quotas. The fight is about protecting traditional assembly line jobs in Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. This is a noble goal, but it's a strategic misdirection. While U.S. politicians are focused on saving the shell of the old automobile, multi-billion-dollar investments for the core of the new one are being signed, sealed, and delivered just across the border. This is the great warning. America is focused on who assembles the car. Canada is focused on who supplies the battery. One is the past, the other is the future. This is why Japanese automakers are leaving becomes less important than what they are building with their new partner. Having the raw minerals is one part of the equation, but turning those rocks into the world's most advanced technology is the other. This is where America's second great ally enters the game, cementing a new alliance that fundamentally bypasses the United States. The New Clean Energy Alliance. What happens when you merge the world's most advanced battery technology with one of the world's largest, most stable supplies of critical minerals? You get the New Clean Energy Alliance. This is the perfect marriage of Japanese technology and Canadian resources. For decades, Japanese corporations like Toyota, Honda, and Panasonic have poured tens of billions into perfecting battery technology. They are the masters of high-performance, reliable, and mass-producible EV and hybrid systems. They hold the patents. They have the expertise. But they lack one thing: a secure, large-scale, and politically stable supply of raw lithium, nickel, and cobalt. Canada has all three. What we are witnessing is the creation of a new, non-U.S. dependent trade bridge. It is a completely self-contained ecosystem. The new global supply chain now looks like this. Critical minerals are extracted from Canadian mines. They are shipped not across the Pacific, but to new multi-billion-dollar processing plants in gigafactories being built in Ontario and Quebec. In these factories, often as joint ventures between Japanese tech firms and Canadian resource companies, the raw materials are turned into high-end battery cells. Those cells are then supplied directly to the new EV assembly plants, also in Canada. The finished electric vehicles are then exported to the world. This entire loop, from the mine to the finished car, happens almost entirely within Canada, powered by Japanese technology. The United States, once the central hub for all manufacturing, has been strategically cut out of the loop. If you think this is just a theory, you only need to follow the money. The proof is not in political promises, it's in the concrete being poured. This is not a response to tariffs. This is a long-term, multi-decade strategic commitment. In March 2023, Volkswagen, a German automaker, announced it would build its first-ever overseas battery gigafactory, not in the U.S., but in St. Thomas, Ontario. This is a massive investment, projected to be one of the largest industrial plants in Canadian history. Then in 2024, Honda of Japan announced an $11 billion investment. This was not just for an assembly plant. It was an $11 billion commitment to build a complete EV supply chain in Canada, including a new battery plant, a cathode active material plant, and a separator plant, all in partnership with other firms. Stellantis, the European giant, is building its own massive battery venture in Ontario with South Korea's LG energy solution. This is the structural reset economists are talking about. The world's industrial giants, from Germany, Japan, and South Korea, have all looked at the landscape. They have analyzed the political volatility in the U.S. They have analyzed the raw material shortage, and they have all independently come to the same conclusion. The safest, most stable, and most resource-secure place to build the future of the auto industry is Canada. This reveals Canada's new role in the 21st century, the bridge economy. How can Canada remain one of America's closest partners under the USMCA trade deal, while simultaneously competing directly with it for the next generation of industry? The answer is masterful diplomacy. Canada is using its unique position to its full advantage. It uses the USMCA, the new NAFTA, to guarantee access to the massive U.S. consumer market. This makes it a safe place for automakers to build. At the same time, it uses the CPTPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership that the U.S. famously abandoned, to create free trade bridges with Japan and other Pacific economies. This allows Japanese technology to flow into Canada and finished Canadian products to flow out to Asia, all while avoiding U.S. political friction. Canada has effectively turned itself into the Switzerland of North America. It is a stable, neutral, low-risk hub that connects the supply chains of the East and the West. The very tariffs Washington designed to isolate foreign rivals have been turned into leverage for Ottawa. The political barriers built by the U.S. have become economic opportunities for Canada, making it the silent winner of protectionism. The cost of uncertainty. History, it seems, is repeating itself, but this time, the stakes are infinitely higher. We have seen this story before. In the early 1980s, the U.S. government under President Reagan, pressured by Detroit, introduced voluntary export limits on Japanese cars. This was, in effect, a massive tariff designed to protect American automakers. What was Japan's response? Instead of fighting the policy, companies like Honda and Toyota made a strategic pivot. In 1986, Honda built a massive plant in Alliston, Ontario. Toyota followed in 1988 in Cambridge, Ontario. They used Canada as the industrial backdoor to North America. Vehicles built there were considered domestic, bypassing U.S. import restrictions while keeping production on the continent. That move revived Canada's manufacturing base and gave Japan a permanent foothold. Today, 4 decades later, the same pattern is unfolding. Washington is building tariff walls, Japan is adapting, and Canada is opening its doors. But the stakes are no longer just about cars. The auto industry now sits at the intersection of technology, clean energy, and global trade. The 1980s shift was about assembly lines. The 2025 shift is about the entire energy supply chain for the next 50 years. This time, it's not just about losing factories. It's about losing control over the critical minerals, the battery technology, and the clean energy grid of the future. This is the great American detour. By focusing on the 20th century battle of tariffs and assembly lines, the U.S. is building its own detour. It is forcing its most critical allies, the very nations that hold the keys to next-generation technology, to forge new paths that bypass America entirely. While America is arguing about the past, its partners are building the future, and that future is being built on Canadian soil. This is how Canada becomes the silent superpower of North America. Its economy benefits from the very trade walls others build. It has secured the technology from Japan and Germany. It has secured the raw materials from its own territory. It has secured the trade routes through the CPTPP and USMCA. And it has secured it all through the one resource that has become the most valuable commodity of all: stability. Conclusion. What began as a tactical response by Japanese automakers to U.S. tariffs has now evolved into a full-blown strategic realignment of the global economy. The priorities of global corporations have changed. They are no longer betting on proximity to the U.S. market. They are betting on the consistency of the system they operate within. The United States is offering uncertainty. Canada is offering confidence. In an unpredictable global economy, that confidence is the single most valuable asset. This entire shift tells a larger story about direction. While the US is building walls, Canada is building bridges, new trade bridges made of lithium, nickel, and cobalt, connecting its resources to Japanese and European technology. The real question now is not if this shift is happening, but how long it will take before America realizes that the road it is on may be leading to its own detour. How concerned are you that the US is focused on old industries while its allies are building the next generation supply chain? Do you believe stability is now more valuable than proximity to the US market? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. But this resource war isn't just about Japan and Canada. The US is now scrambling to secure its own supply, which leads to the critical question, can America ever catch up? I'll analyze that strategic challenge in our follow-up video, The Great Resource Scramble. Thanks for tuning in.